Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second virtual public presentation for the State Street Improvements Project. Today, we're going to discuss the goals of the project and some possible design options. We'll take a look at these options in cross-section and plan view, and you'll have a chance to share your thoughts on our survey. We'll also talk about the Healthy Streets pilot, which is in place on State Street today. And last, we'll go over the construction schedule. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us today. Now let's get started. So here's a short agenda. I'll start by introducing our team, then dive into some background on the project, followed by a look at design concepts and the Healthy Streets pilot, and finish off with the schedule looking ahead. My name is Ashley Biggins, and I'm a project manager with the Boston Public Works Department. I'm overseeing the State Street Improvements Project. We're working with Greenman Peterson as our design consultant, and playing key advisory roles are the Boston Transportation Department, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, and the Office of Neighborhood Services. Now that you know the project team, we'll discuss some background on the project. State Street is one of Boston's oldest and most iconic streets. Its current configuration makes for a disjointed experience for pedestrians and motorists. This project is an opportunity to apply a people-first approach to the design of State Street. The new design will provide a more balanced experience for all road users by offering safety, mobility, and overall functionality improvements along the corridor. With State Street, we want to design for the future. To do that, we are aligning with the Go Boston 2030 Transportation Plan, which has goals set for improving safety, expanding access, ensuring reliability, reducing car use, reducing emissions, and increasing affordability. The Vision Zero Action Plan is another resource we've used to guide the design. The goal of this plan is to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries from traffic crashes. Last, to help make State Street more user-friendly for all modes of transportation, we are following the Complete Street Guidelines. These guidelines have been applied throughout the city to provide a more uniform experience for all road users. State Street is a key east-west link in Boston's expanding bicycle network. It bridges the Connect Historic Boston Bike Path and downtown Boston. It's also central to a number of points of interest in local transportation hubs. Bicycle lanes are needed for both access and safety. State Street is part of Vision Zero's high crash network, with 78% of the injury crashes involving bicyclists or pedestrians. These are the most vulnerable road users, and the best way to eliminate these crashes is to reduce the incidence of conflict between vehicles and these users. This can be done by providing a dedicated bike lane. Along with our first virtual public presentation, we released a survey. From that, we gauged people's interest in different possible improvements for State Street. Here's a summary of some of the results. One interesting thing to note is that even with the pandemic, the feedback we've received on State Street has remained consistent since last fall. Based on the feedback we've received, there is near unanimous support for pedestrian improvements such as wider sidewalks, accessible ramps, and improved crossings. There's also strong support for street beautification, flexible design, traffic calming, and bicycle improvements. There's support for improving curb regulations, which would reduce the incidence of loading, parking, and double parking, which exacerbate congestion, with less concern for prioritizing vehicle accommodation over other modes of travel. Now we'll discuss some design considerations and concepts. One concern we need to address is the inconsistent roadway width. In its current condition, State Street widens and contracts, which can be confusing for motorists and encourage double parking. By defining a single lane, we can eliminate confusion for drivers and increase safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. Because the capacity of the roadway is limited by its narrowest point, we need to work from there for a uniform overall design. Pre-pandemic, State Street saw over 29,000 pedestrians on a typical day. We want future improvements to be able to handle that capacity comfortably, with wider sidewalks, improved visibility at crossings, and more accessible sidewalks with consistent cross slopes and stable surfaces. We want to provide a separated lane for bicyclists to eliminate vehicle-bike conflicts and provide a link between the Connect Historic Boston bike path and the Connect Downtown bike path. To meet the transportation demands on State Street, we want to move loading off the street wherever possible. This will help reduce congestion and maximize the limited space for moving people. We want our design to be flexible to provide space for special events to vitalize the area and to adapt to changing transportation needs. This project is a great opportunity to address safety concerns at intersections, to calm turning vehicles, to add signal modifications such as a leading pedestrian interval, to provide bike accommodations, improve visibility at pedestrian crossings, and add clear lane striping. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some roadway treatments we can use to achieve these goals. The first is a flush street. On a flush street, the sidewalks are the same level as the street, so there are no curbs. Vehicles can be separated from pedestrians by street elements such as bollards, planters, or street furniture. A flush street provides opportunities to reconfigure the space for special uses or events. This example picture is from Union Street in Boston. It's only a few blocks from the project site. We can see the roadway has been reconfigured for dining, which has been invaluable in these times. Next, we have a protected intersection. This uses corner islands to slow vehicles as they turn and improves the visibility of pedestrians and bicyclists in the crosswalk. Another treatment we're considering is a leading pedestrian interval. The leading pedestrian interval, or LPI, gives a pedestrian a walk indication for 3 to 7 seconds ahead of the vehicle, getting the green light in the same direction of travel. LPIs enhance the visibility of pedestrians at the intersection and reinforce their right-of-way, overturning vehicles, improving safety in locations with conflicting movements. This treatment is already used at a few other locations on Surface Road, so anyone walking in the area may already be familiar with LPIs. Now we'll look at some conceptual designs for State Street. We'll look at the roadway in sections and go through possibilities being considered for each. First will be the section at the pinch point near Chatham Row. Then we'll continue moving east to west. Here we have an example of one possibility shown over the entire roadway. However, we may want to go with different options for any given section. The conditions at the narrowest point on State Street are the greatest limiting factor to our design. Space here, just west of India Street, is extremely limited, with only 35 feet from building face to building face. Because of this, we are only able to accommodate one vehicle lane safely through this section. Here is the cross-section of the pinch point. The first frame shows the existing conditions with the space split into a 6-foot sidewalk, a 22-foot travel lane, and a 7-foot sidewalk. Within the sidewalk space, there is also infrastructure like light posts and fire hydrants, which further reduce the space for pedestrians. The proposed cross-section would widen both sidewalks to 7.5 feet, have a clearly defined 12-foot travel lane, and provide space for a 5-foot bike lane with a 3-foot buffer. Looking again at the plan view, we can see how the proposed lane configuration fits with the rest of the street. In this version, we are showing the flush street condition in the center portion of State Street, from McKinley Square to Kilby Street. So now that we've examined the pinch point, which is the greatest design hurdle, we'll look to the east, where State Street meets Surface Road. For this section, I'll cover two options, one where we relocate tour bus parking, and the second with a north side tour bus stop. In all options, we're proposing a protected bike lane on Surface Road, as shown here. The current cross-section has a 32-foot sidewalk on the south side, which is broken up by the aquarium station head house and elevator. The roadway is 42 feet, with loading lanes on both sides and a single undefined travel lane. The majority of drivers do treat this section as one travel lane, though there are occasions of double parking and lane jockeying. On the north side, we have a 39-foot sidewalk. Option 1 widens the sidewalk on both north and south sides and provides a clear path for walking past the aquarium station. This option provides one lane for loading, one through lane, and a buffered bike lane. Here, in plan view, we can see the wider sidewalks, clearly defined travel lane, loading area, and buffered bike lane. For option 2, we have one travel lane, a floating bus stop, and south loading zone. To accommodate the bus stop, we shift the sidewalk alignment, and this option includes a protected westbound bike lane. Here is option 2 in plan view. On the north side is the floating bus stop and protected bike lane. This bus stop is proposed as tour bus pickup drop-off. Next, we're going to look at the midsection of State Street, and there are 4 options for this section. The first 2 relocate loading off of State Street. Option 1 uses this space to widen the north sidewalk. Option 2 widens the sidewalk on both sides. The other options keep loading on State Street. Option 3 provides loading on the south side, and option 4 has loading on the north side. The current cross-section has an 11-foot sidewalk on the south side, a 31-foot roadway with loading on the north side, and a 9-foot sidewalk north of that. With option 1, we relocate loading off of State Street. The south sidewalk remains unchanged, and we have a clearly defined lane of travel with a buffered bike lane and a significantly wider sidewalk on the north side of 20 feet. Here is option 1 in plan view with significantly wider sidewalks on the north side. With option 2, again loading is moved off of State Street. Additional space is added to widen both sidewalks, and we have a clearly defined travel lane with a buffered bike lane. Looking at option 2 in plan view, we can see both the north and south sidewalks are being widened. In option 3, loading remains on this section of State Street, with a 9-foot loading zone on the south side. There's a single well-defined travel lane, buffered bike lane, and slightly wider north sidewalk at 11 feet. And here's option 3 in plan view. We can see the south side loading zone, a clearly defined travel lane, protected bike lane, and modest gains of space on the north sidewalk. For option 4, loading remains in this section of State Street with a 9-foot loading zone on the north side. Again, we have a well-defined travel lane, buffered bike lane, and a slight increase in the width of the north sidewalk. Given the bike lane is against the curb, we opted to define the north side loading zone with pavement markings. To maintain access to Butler Row, this option has fewer available spaces than option 3. The final segment includes the intersection of State Street and Congress Street. The current cross-section has a 16-foot sidewalk on the south side, 3 travel lanes, and a cab stand with a 40-foot sidewalk on the north side. It should be noted that though this sidewalk is wide, only 4 feet of it are in the public right-of-way. The proposed plan would maintain 3 travel lanes and move the cab stand around the corner to Congress Street. This will provide space for a 5-foot buffered bike lane and an additional 5.5 feet on the north sidewalk. In this view, we can see the roadway widen at Kilby Street, with 2 through lanes and a right-only lane approaching Congress Street. On the north side, the protected bike lane continues to the intersection, and the cab stand will be adjacent to 60th Street, but will be relocated around the corner. Because we are talking about changing the curbside regulations, let's take a look at what they are today. Here, curbside zones are designated by color, and the number describes how many spaces are available in each. The red indicates no stopping, yellow is cab stand or valet, green is metered parking, etc. Right now, in the area, we have 71 spaces of various types. Back in the fall, we did an extensive curbside use study to find out which zones were occupied most often and which were underutilized. We used this information to determine the loading needs on State Street. This is an example of how we could move most of the loading off of State Street. The cab stand at 60 State has been moved around the corner to Congress Street. The blue zones, indicating commercial loading, have been moved to Broad Street and Chatham Way. This option includes new 5-minute pickup drop-off zones shown in orange, as there is a high demand for that type of use with various food delivery services. This is one of many options for the area. Next, we'll talk about the Healthy Streets pilot project happening now on State Street. Earlier this season, as part of Phase 1 of the pilot project, temporary measures were taken to widen sidewalks and add bike lanes along multiple streets downtown, including State Street. This is to encourage a healthy reopening of the city by providing space for social distancing and alternative modes of travel. Traffic cones and barrels were used to designate this new space. Now, Phase 2 of the pilot is using pavement markings to better clarify how the space is being used. You can see an example here of a bike lane in front of the Black Rose. If you have an opportunity to visit State Street, we want to hear from you. There will be a space on the website with a new survey that includes questions focused on Phase 2 of the pilot. The second phase of the pilot will include a better definition of the pedestrian and bike zones, changes in curbside use, and ongoing data collection. When comparing data collected last year with data collected in Phase 1 of the pilot project, we can see changes in transportation patterns due to the effects of COVID-19. Pedestrians saw the greatest drop in numbers, with 80% fewer people seen walking along State Street, 60% fewer cars were observed, and 30% fewer bikes. It should be noted all design changes we are proposing were studied and modeled using pre-COVID data. Finally, I want to share the schedule moving forward. We began our community outreach last fall with a pop-up event. Over the summer, we had our first virtual public presentation, and we'll continue with online outreach through surveys and Zoom meetings with community groups. We plan on having another pop-up event next week, October 29th from 10 to 4 on State Street by Chatham Row. By January, we expect to have a conceptual plan, with the design being finalized over the spring and summer season, and construction beginning later in 2021. For more information, check out our website, boston.gov/state-street. Here you can learn more about the project, take our online survey, or get in touch with the team. You can also contact me at ashley.biggins@boston.gov. That concludes the presentation. Thanks for your time.